Brandon Johnson just unveiled his fiscal year 2026 budget, and it is nothing but a complete destruction of the economy for the city of Chicago. He claims that he's trying to avoid raising property taxes on the middle class, but in actuality, he's just shifting the burden of taxes from one group of people to the other. In this particular case, however, he's shifting it to the very business community that he needs in order for this plan to work. Brandon Johnson is destroying the city of Chicago, and I'm not the only person who believes this.
I've heard concerns from the business community with regard to corporate income taxes, head taxes, that kinds of things. Run us through how you're planning on accomplishing these goals.
Yeah, well, the first thing is that this budget does not raise property taxes. This was important to the people of Chicago. What we saw from the Trump administration, you saw the largest concentration of wealth shifted from middle class, working class people into the hands of the ultra rich and big corporations, right? We're talking about $1 trillion worth of cuts that benefit large corporations. And so what I've done is we put forth a community safety surcharge for our largest corporations, which really is only going to impact about 3% of those large corporations.
You continue to hear him say this, oh, it's only going to impact 3% of corporations. But this is what the response is from the business community.
You don't put in a policy that will hurt growth, that will hurt the tax base and potentially shrink the tax base, that will compromise the vibrancy of the city in order to solve this other problem. It's like you're trying to solve a problem by creating an additional problem.
And while the mayor said the head tax would only impact 3% of businesses, the Civic Committee and some alders say that's misleading.
The number that we should be focused on is what percentage of the jobs in Chicago is he taxing? Not the percentage of the companies that are getting taxed. And the reality is he's taxing a humongous share of the jobs in the city of Chicago.
This is something that oftentimes politicians will do. They'll switch back and forth between percentages and raw numbers. And Brandon Johnson is counting on the fact that when he says, oh, it's only going to impact 3% of businesses, that the average person will say, oh yeah, okay, 97% of business won't be impacted, so it must be good. Again, this is what you expect. This is the type of response that you would expect from a elementary school teacher, which is what he's done for the majority of his career. But it's not just the civic community that's responding.
How many companies are going to tell their employees, come to the office 2 days, work from home 3 days, and then they can bypass the head tax in general? And we all know hybrid work is part of what's destroying downtown's vibrancy. We need people back at work.
A new report by the Federal Reserve paints a bleak hiring outlook for Chicago over the next 12 months. The Fed is projecting hiring to be down nearly 40%. That's the lowest it's been since March of 2020 during the pandemic.
So you just heard from a local business owner there, Scott Wiener. He's the co-owner of the 50/50 restaurant in downtown Chicago. He's saying, as a business owner, that people can just circumvent this head tax by just letting people work home part of the week. So they work from home 3 days out of the week. They come into the office 2 days out of the week. That's how they can circumvent this head tax altogether. And then you hear a report from the federal government saying that this is going to drive down employment. Employers are not going to absorb this tax from Brandon Johnson because of his fiscal mismanagement that is rooted in a large part to the $630 million that the city spent on the migrants. This entire budget deficit is his fault. It is 100% his fault, and he's doing any and everything he can do to try and cover it up.
Bringing back the head tax, charging the city's largest employers $21 a month per employee, also raked over the coals.
Do you see that being a disincentive for employers to remain in Chicago if they're going to be penalized for having those employees here?
The mayor's budget team citing how little changed when Mayor Emanuel removed the albeit smaller head tax in 2014.
Chicago did not vary compared to the state or the country when that action was taken.
It's being rejected by the aldermen who have to vote to pass this tax. It's being rejected from the business community The federal government has come out and said that this is a bad idea, but even Governor Pritzker is on the record and saying that this is a job-killing tax.
When asked about Mayor Brandon Johnson's proposed corporate head tax, the governor did not mince words.
I am absolutely foursquare opposed to a head tax for the city of Chicago.
That message resonating with business leaders.
It penalizes the very thing that we want, which is we want more employment in the city of Chicago. And it makes it very hard to attract companies from outside of Chicago to come into Chicago, and harder for companies that are in Chicago to stay.
The governor talking about how he has worked hard to attract businesses to Illinois. He acknowledged that federal cuts are making it harder on budgets all over, including Chicago.
And I just want to say, balancing the budget for the state of Illinois, for the city of Chicago, vital, can't be ignored, has to be done, shouldn't be done with a head tax in the city of Chicago.
His comment around the future budget of the city and some of the revenue enhancements that the mayor has proposed was pretty surprising that he was that direct.
The head tax is hard, and it could potentially drive businesses out of the state, out of the city. And I think that's a real concern for the city. I think he was dead on.
Mayor Johnson championed the head tax as a way to raise $100 million for anti-violence programs and youth summer jobs. Business groups hoping the mayor heeds the governor's concerns.
Well, I'm hopeful, and the process started today. There's budget hearings today, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it with alders. We'll continue to talk about it with the mayor and his team, and we'll look at what can we do.
So how many people have to go on the record telling this man that it's a bad idea? It's going to destroy jobs. It's going to encourage employers to either leave the city of Chicago or not come to Chicago in the first place. But I have to say it again. This man has spent 12 years as an elementary school social studies teacher. This is not the type of person who you put in charge of the third largest city in the country. He doesn't know what he's doing.
With more than 100 employees. I did see a quote from the president of the Chamber of Commerce saying this could be a job-crushing measure. Do you worry that putting a head tax on these larger companies will either drive businesses away from Chicago or discourage businesses who are potentially considering Chicago as a location from coming here?
Well, look, we have been voted the best big city by Condé Nast for 9 years in a row.
This is something that he often says when someone brings up this head tax, or they bring up his taxes in general, and they ask him, hey, are you concerned that these taxes might drive businesses out of the city of Chicago? And he always references this Condé Nast magazine that has voted Chicago the greatest big city in, for 9 years straight. The implication being that Condé Nast is some magazine that's talking about business issues, talking about Chicago and ranking it as far as its business climate, whether or not it's friendly to businesses or not. He doesn't say the entire name of the magazine because he knows that it's a lie. Condé Nast, the full name of that magazine is Condé Nast Traveler. This is a travel magazine, and Condé Nast has voted Chicago for 9 years in a row as the best place in the country to travel. If you're going to go on vacation, Condé Nast has not made any reference to the business climate of the city of Chicago. But again, this is why I have so little respect for Brandon Johnson, because he purposely says Condé Nast as opposed to saying Condé Nast Traveler magazine, because he knows that if he said Traveler magazine, that people would say, why are you bringing up a travel magazine in response to a question about the business climate in the city of Chicago? So he's either prevaricating on purpose, or he's trying to be, he's trying to beguile people, again, because most people haven't heard of Condé Nast magazine. I had to go look it up. But again, this is what you expect from someone who has never run a business. He doesn't understand how you can attract businesses, that tax strategy plays a part, and if taxes go higher, if they become too onerous, then businesses are going to leave and find a friendlier environment. It is not the responsibility of the taxpayer or the business community to cover up for Brandon Johnson's mismanagement. He needs to go back to a pre-COVID budget of that $10.6 billion, which was the budget in 2019, and he needs to let all of this go. Again, even the aldermen are on the record saying that this is a horrible budget.
I think the head tax is definitely a job killer, and it sends the wrong message to business that Chicago is not open for business.
As we continue to see more and more people, more and more companies talking about leaving Chicago and Illinois, this is not the message to send.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Brandon Johnson is destroying the city of Chicago. And we have 2 more years of this mayor. If he's done this much damage in his first 2 years, how much more can he damage the city? I think he should resign. I think he should quit. He should just come out and just say, hey, I can't do this. I don't have the skill set. I haven't put the right team around me. Just go ahead and resign for the city of Chicago. If you really care about the people of the city of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, resign today. Let me know what you think. As always, subscribe, drop a like, drop a hype. Let's get the conversation going. Should Brandon Johnson just resign today? Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you for hanging out this long, and I'll catch you in the next one.